You said Japanese voters voted for Abe because he guarantees continuity. But if you look at the year before the Abe government, I think the economy was in better shape. Foreign relation was in better shape with China, and perhaps China not, but South Korea. So why had the other government not a better result, even if they changed the prime minister every year?
So that's the question about how much his views of the past influence his views of the future. He wrote a book. There's a book. It's a taidan, a conversation between Abe and Hyakuda Naoki, the novelists, and Zero no, or what is it? The movie about kamikaze pilot and so on. So this book has a title in Japanese. I think I remember the title. In Japanese, it's called Nihon yo, or probably Nippon yo. Sekai no manaka ni saki hokore. And it has on the cover in the English equivalent, Japan, be proud at the center of the world. Well, if this is the vision of the future, this is not a vision, this is a delusion. Japan is not at the center of the world. It's a big, major economic power, an important player in the world, but it's not at the center of the world. My point here is that the concern about Abe is, what is his vision of this region and his vision of Japan's role in this region and the world? Next year, the 70th anniversary, he will issue his Abe Danwa, his Abe statement following on the Murayama statement. That's the opportunity for him to explain a vision that is reassuring to the neighbors and to the Japanese public, to the U.S. and to others. So in short, you asked a good short question. I'm giving a much too long answer. I don't think that Abe has changed the basic strategy all that much, or that to the extent it's changed, it would not have changed had someone else become a prime minister. But and that he's done something very positive for Japan in raising its profile, especially in ASEAN and with the Australians and so on. But we come back again to how this history issue hangs as a terrible cloud over Japan today.
Anthony Rowley, Singapore Business Times. Thank you for a sobering assessment. I think some foreigners, including myself, do have concerns about possibly Japan drifting back to some of the values of the 1930s, but in terms of loss of individual freedoms, in terms of political extremism and so on. But of course the context is different now from the 1930s. So how far will the checks and balances prevent that happening, do you think? And what's the implications of all this for the election for Japan's relations with the rest of Asia, especially East Asia?
Well, I'm cautiously optimistic that the public, the public sentiment here will not be amenable to going back to 1930s kinds of restrictions on individual freedoms and much less using the military for expansionary purposes. I don't buy any of that. I think that's one reason why this conversation about history is so unfortunate, is that a lot of it is trying simply to honor the memory of people like the Prime Minister's grandfather and others, without much implications, I think, for future policy. But having said that, I guess I'm thinking out loud. Having said that, what we see with the Japanese public today is neither a lot of support for what Mr. Abe wants to do or much in the way of opposition, but a kind of acquiescence. And I think you see Abe push the envelope and then he sees how much pushback there is, and if there's some, he backs off. That was a story of collective defense. He pushed for a much more broader interpretation of what collective defense would permit. Komeito pushed back, but so did the public more generally. And he's pragmatic, and he got what he knew, what he thought he could get, which is really not all that much. But that wasn't his goal. He pushed on the Classified Secrets Act. His popularity took a hit for a month, but it came back. Public kind of accepted it. He's pushing on nuclear energy. There's pushback, but you'll get a nuclear power plant up and running in another few months, and that'll, and as long as it doesn't blow up, there'll be more. So I think Abe is going to keep on pushing out and see how it goes. I don't see, as I said, I don't see real enthusiasm.